So let's move on to TNA. We started today. Wayne and I put together like our news rundown. It started with we were going to talk about Tessa Blanchard leaving the company. Then Tommy Dreamer has left the company. Then Sami Callihan has left the company. TNA has announced a workforce reduction. I mean, what is going on with TNA, Way? Who's left?
Cost cutting. Well, I guess a number of people. Yeah.
Well, they put out this announcement today. TNA Wrestling today announced a workforce reduction designed to streamline operations and sharpen strategic focus and profitability. Could you translate that for us, Way? We're cutting people.
Yeah, we're saving money. Because
to streamline operations and sharpen strategic focus and profitability.
Okay,
that sounds like a paragraph that was workshopped many times over. TNA's creative leadership team will see an immediate shift. Tommy Dreamer, who has worked in TNA's creative and talent relations departments, is leaving the company as TNA and Dreamer mutually agreed to part ways. TNA Wrestling also has come to terms on the release of Tessa Blanchard. We wish Tessa, Tommy, and others the best in their future endeavors. So first, let's go in order here. We're going to hear this is a clip of Tommy Dreamer, who actually announced this before TNA's announcement went out on today's Busted Open Radio. This is a very emotional Tommy Dreamer conveying that he is no longer with TNA Wrestling.
All relationships come to an end. And yesterday I had a great conversation with Carlos Silva, and me and TNA are no longer in a relationship. We've mutually agreed to part ways. I've given so much of my life to that company. I don't have any ill will or malice. I loved going to work. I did. But everything comes to an end. I'm not crying because I'm mad or I'm emotional, but I know I'll be okay. And I hope TNA will be okay.
It's kind of ominous. I hope TNA will be okay. Tommy Dreamer and TNA are presenting this as they have mutually agreed to part ways. I would say if you listen to this clip, it comes as no surprise that Sean Ross Sapp has reported that like this was like TNA was letting Tommy Dreamer go. Like this seems to be a decision that they are.
Do you want to no longer have your job? No, but I mean, I guess I have no choice. Like that, sure, yes.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's always something with like the language here, but like this is TNA making a move in their creative department. Now, since then, we won't list off all the talent yet because that was separate, but also gone is Sami Callihan. And while Sami Callihan had wrestled his last match last summer and retired, he had since transitioned into a behind-the-scenes role where he had been working as a producer, believe had been working in their marketing department as well. And it had been reported earlier in the day by PW Insider that he was among the cuts. And he writes, "Thought I was getting called today to be offered a position in creative. Nope. I've parted ways with TNA. Oh well, onward to the next adventure." Pretty to the point. Was expecting a promotion. Did not get the promotion. The name, and Fightful has done a lot of great reporting today on like the all the movement at TNA. That one of the names that is being floated out there that potentially could be coming into TNA in a creative capacity is Road Dogg, Brian Armstrong. So Dreamer out, Tessa Blanchard out, Sami Callihan out, other talent that have recently left, Steve Macklin, Danny Luna, Myla Grace, and Tessa Blanchard, who we did not even get to talk about yet, but it seems like she was caught in the middle of this, whatever you want to call it, between CMLL and TNA, and that she basically had to choose, and she's going with CMLL. And I mean, this does not paint a great picture of the infrastructure at TNA. We just had this conversation, Way. Like TNA, I am sure Tommy Dreamer has his fans and his detractors. I don't think like a big move in creative was uncalled for here. Like it has not been a product that has been all that engaging. And the one issue though I look at, and this was brought up today by John Elbin. I completely agree. Is just there is such a need. I feel for like some new, fresh, creative minds to get into these positions that. Like no shade against like a Road Dogg, but it just feels like it's this very small group that just constantly are filling these seats. And it's just like this small little unit that these are the only people that can format television that we can draw from. And I would really like to see TNA take an opportunity to do something exciting, do something that, you know what, maybe it does blow up in your face, but this is a company that could take some risks. You have your diehard 200,000 viewers that are watching this. I think we'd agree, like the move to AMC, it was the latest carrot to dangle. And here we are. TNA is in the same place. They've lost the momentum they had of a year ago, and now it's a rebuilding process. And it's probably only going to get more difficult. Like, we don't know all the names that have been let go. Of course, Mike Santana's deal is coming due. So it does make you question, like, what is the talent turnover going to be?
Leon Slater as well.
Leon Slater is someone I think everyone has earmarked for WWE as at some point, and TNA has to realize that. So I don't think creative is like the be all end all here of their problems. It is one though. And I can't say like this decision is one where, TNA is wrong to be making a move here, and it's going to fall on the quote unquote head coach, and that's sort of what your head of creative is designed to be. Is like him and Delirious. Delirious is still there, of course.
It's not the be all end all, especially in such an oversaturated environment where people are already largely satisfied with the abundance of professional wrestling they're getting outside of TNA. It's really
having
hard.
The best written show is not going to suddenly get you 500,000 viewers, 1 million viewers.
Not suddenly, but it is, I think, the most you can do in this sort of situation. In fact, it's, I think, the least you could do. You not only have to give people a reason to, I don't know, make 2 more hours out of their week for your product. You have to over deliver to get them to come back. And they have not been able to do that. There's been suddenly, I think, a lot more discussion about just like, well, the status of TNA. Following, I would say, like a real sort of like pullback on the WWE interactions. Great article, by the way, here from Jack Wannen that was released on our site last week, kind of crystallizing a lot of these thoughts into an article, opinion piece. So do check that out. But I wonder how much of that, has really kind of gotten back to Anthem, or if this was something that they were already thinking about anyway. They are at a point now where they have to make some change. And I think you look no further than much of the reaction to what was an incredibly heartbreaking and heartfelt speech from Dreamer. Like, clearly this is a band who has lost some form of like dream job, you could say. From what I know about him, this is a man who truly loves professional wrestling, watches everything, and probably really valued his role beyond, what he mentioned about having close relationships with his colleagues. So my heart breaks for him listening to that. A man who has essentially lost a dream job. But even looking at some of the responses to that busted open clip out there, a lot of it is criticism of the creative. And I you're somebody who watches week to week, John,
it's not an invigorating product at the moment. Like, they've got this Slammiversary show that's coming up, and while we can all look at the difficulty of programming this pay-per-view that weekend, that a lot of that's out of their control, something that is in their control is they're going to Boston, and they're going into the Agganis Arena, which holds about 9,000 or so people. They are well under 2,000 for that show. And that's not Forbidden Door running the next day. That's not Great American Bash running the same day. And this is not an outlier. A lot of their shows, they're not moving a whole lot of tickets. There's very little, I think, buzz with the product at the moment. And I think people see this as sort of the names that are getting over, they're going to get the offers. They are in it's a kind of even more of a direct pipeline than say a like New Japan, for instance, that we talk about, of like talents that are going to get over to a certain point and then they'll be gone.
Yeah, like New Japan, I would say at least is protected by the fact that they're in Japan, and there's simply a lot of talents that either aren't going to get offers to migrate all the way over to an English, like to an English speaking product, essentially, because there are only so many spots for Japanese talents, either in AEW or WWE. TNA doesn't have that protection. I mean, everybody is up for grabs, and will likely be up for grabs by one of the big two whenever they get over. So if you can't compete for talent, what can you possibly compete with? I think it's writing. I think it's the quality of storytelling, and you bring up, I would certainly suggest like Road Dogg being probably the wrong direction that I think the wrestling audience would want for a TNA, because the public perception is that he was responsible for a lot of the bad that was on SmackDown. That has since, I would say, been somewhat alleviated. I don't know if you would entirely attribute that to him, but that is the perception that I think Road Dogg carries with him. I don't think it's a good one. But I think also, like, you got to look at Carlos.
Want somebody, like, I want to hear somebody hired in this role that the vast majority of the audience, their response is, who? Like, I think that is what you want. I want somebody that is like younger than me that is in this role, and take a chance. And if it blows up, it's like, take some risk.
So let's talk about this though. Who is in charge of making that decision, and how would that person know who that guy is? Right? You're looking at a Carlos Silva up top. If you're looking at the coach as, maybe making some of these false moves, I kind of think next is Carlos Silva, right? Is he making the right moves? And would he be aware enough of who is out there to find that next guy? The next whatever, like star booker. Is his Rolodex of wrestling names that big? Is who he trusts to recommend those names big enough that he could land on that right person? Or is it simply like, well, who did WWE used to hire? Let's try this guy who I might have heard of in the past, right?
Yeah, like this is something that like a Carlos Silva should be delegating to your roster people. Like I'd lean on like a Matt Hardy. It would be not to be in that creative role, but was like, you're on this indie scene. You've been to WWE. Who are some of these untapped writers that would be good in this role, whether in a small team? I would want this to be small. I would not want a bunch of people in this role, or somebody that is just given the task of being the overseer. Like, this should not be a Carlos Silva decision where it's, oh, Road Dogg, Attitude Era. I recognize that name. And again, it's like, it's nothing against Road Dogg, but I think it's like overall, like, the industry needs to be looking at these fresher names of, instead of like New Japan. I could argue that the exact same thing, but like, who are the next people that are going to be coming in that have new, different ideas? And TNA is not in a position where it's like, if they make some critical error that it's going to ruin what you've built up. You are in this position where you are allowed to make big leaps, and maybe you fall on your face, but maybe you also strike something and you open the gateway that this audience is going to be most attuned to a decision like that, of putting somebody in that will at least garner curiosity out of the gate for an interest in seeing, a national wrestling promotion through someone else's eyes that is doing this in a big way for the first time, and not in some kind of committee and somebody that you're taking a risk on.
So that's maybe like the creative conversation. Looking at the talent, and let's assume a year from now they don't have Leon Slater, they don't have Mike Santana. Who are those names that you would put at the forefront of the company?
I mean, they've signed Ricky Sosa, and I think he was a great get by TNA. He's someone that's really gotten over in the time that he's come in. It's going to be a lot of these. They're going to have to be looking at names that are like untapped and seeking talent as well, that are ones that are, I think, in their 20s, that are not quite discovered on the national scene yet, or are kind of outside of the periphery of what WWE is looking at. I mean, on their roster right now, a Trey Miguel is hurt, but he'll be coming back, and he's somebody that has,
Not going to AEW.
Yeah, it's like Moose is probably there for the time being, but these are some of your older performers. Like, you know, you have your Kazarians and your Mooses, Nick Nemeth and Hardys, but those are not your future. But they're guys you can program now. Santana's a big loss for them because Santana is, you know, he rose to be that guy that was really a TNA talent that got over. He did not get over because of his AEW tenure. He got over because of what he did in TNA as well. So I think it's quite honestly, it's scouting a lot of these talents that are that you're taking chances on. I think a lot of this brand is getting away from safe decisions that are not going to make a big difference to your audience, that there's an urgency to tune into this product and kind of follow the mold that an NXT is going through at the moment, where there are going to be failures on NXT, but there's also going to be some success stories. And I think that would be a compelling way that TNA can also operate within its budget, which looks like, you know, they are not breaking the bank, I think, to retain a lot of these performers as well. Like, I don't know what...
You might be breaking the bank simply running the ship. I mean, like, maybe you can... Again, I don't know. I have no idea. But I also get the sense they're probably in a position where they don't want to lose whatever, like, more of what they've already put into this entire project. Right?
And that also becomes the, like TNA will always go in these waves, and they feel like that they're at a lull. And what is, like, it's 10 years now that Anthem has been running this operation. And I think they've seen over these last couple of years sort of the high end of what we can get out of this investment. But was that enough for them? And do they want to go through one more of these periods where it's going to be talent turnover? And it's like, what is our end game here for TNA? Because I would imagine even with this AMC deal, I would be highly doubtful that this is a profitable entity of Anthem's portfolio, that TNA. But again, there are the value here of this product that is also programming for you as well. And that's like, it does serve multiple functions for Anthem, but it's a high expense upkeep to run your own wrestling promotion. And it's not like you have that mythical television deal to land now. Like, you got the TV deal, you got the big TV deal, at least as big as TNA is going to be able to grab. Like, there are not a whole lot of other carrots to dangle out there. It's like, this is sort of, you know, now it's shake up the creative side of things and go with a new philosophy on your creative direction and see if that bears fruit. But they're also losing, like, talent at the same time, and you're trying to increase this energy. And my last point, I do feel from a public perception standpoint that TNA is maybe the most it is the most fragile when it comes to how the public is viewing this company. And I think that whole WrestleMania weekend stuff with Carlos Silva pulling talent, I think that did a number on the perception of this company, that you took these talents away from these fans, and it just was enough that TNA is not going to be given that extra benefit of the doubt that maybe other companies would, or that this would just blow over. I think that, you know, not that it was the most heinous business move in history, but it was just one more thing that I think stuck with people, and they shrugged their shoulders at TNA because it did correlate, I think, with the last couple of months where it just feels like it's a series of factors, but that was one of them.
It's not the most heinous thing in the least, but in trying to, like, what is this? Who's this product for? What is the section of the pie that they have available to them? You're talking about, at this point, the most diehard of professional wrestling fans who are maybe already watching or not interested in, or already watching and not interested in WWE and AEW. And those are the ones that would care about that story. Those are the ones who are paying the most attention to that story. And they certainly harm their reputation with those fans.
More on TNA as always. You know, the real casualty of all this is that all this breaking before Dark Side of the Ring airs their 3-part series on TNA in a couple of weeks.
Could be a 4-parter, maybe.
Maybe it should just be there's a 3-part series on TNA every season of Dark Side of the Ring, because they'll give you the content every year. Given
The story is not closed. This company will survive.
It will make it through.
It will outlive us,
dude. When
sure.
Carlos Silva is headlining Bound for Glory with Road Dogg, I mean, it will continue. It will continue.
What, the letters TNA will somehow still be around somewhere.
The month of June on the Post Wrestling Cafe is going to feature 2 editions of Rewind Away. Already in your feeds is a retrospective on the career of Manami Toyota. Plus, we are discussing WWE's WrestleMania 33 event from 2017, highlighted by the return of the Hardys, John Cena gets down on one knee, and Roman Reigns attempts to retire The Undertaker. Plus, we have coverage this month of New Japan's Dominion card. It's an Ask Away mailbag show as we take all of your questions. I will be sitting down to chat about UFC Freedom 250 with Neil Flanagan, and so much more. All of that can be yours at postwrestlingcafe.com.